What's up, War Report family? We're back with another great edition of the Auburn Express podcast powered by the War Report. Thank you so much for giving us a listen every single day. Joining me as he does always is my guy Chris Phillips from SEC Unfiltered. Chris, Nashville was a blast, was it not?
Mikey G, what's up, man? Appreciate everybody tuning in, by the way. It's always a pleasure to join you on a weekly basis here on the War Report, the Auburn Express. Yeah, Nashville was a ripper, man. It was incredible. I'll say this, man. Vanderbilt was great. Some of you may laugh and scoff and belittle the Vandy fan base, but while they are fewer in number than every other SEC fan base, we can admit that.
Sure.
The few in number that I interacted with, super passionate as any fan base I've come across. The hospitality was incredible, Mike. They were so grateful that we were there. Beautiful campus. You can see the potential with Vandy. Certainly it's a smaller venue than I've been to in weeks past, only seating about 27,000 on Saturday, but they're doing a lot of construction in and around that facility. But, yeah, the city of Nashville, man, I mean, spent a couple nights on Broadway, didn't get a whole lot of sleep, and, wouldn't have it any other way. So it was a good time, man. It was one of my favorite trips thus far, no doubt.
I love Nashville. It's a great city, and you got to go witness an almost upset. Maybe
we almost did it again. I scared them just enough to let them know that I was in the building. So.
Well, let's jump into these rankings here. First, as always, we take a look at last week. This was week 9. You had the aforementioned Vandy at 6, Georgia at 1, LSU at 2, Texas at 3, Tennessee at 4, A&M at 5, Ole Miss here at 7. They played who did Ole Miss play?
Oklahoma,
yeah, that's right. South Carolina, Bama, Mizzou. I got some comments about Mizzou here in a second. Arkansas, Florida, and then rounding out the top 16, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Oklahoma. Let's jump forward to week 10, baby. Auburn makes the jump from last in the last row, the first in the last row at 13. But at the top of the rankings, Georgia, where they belonged. They never didn't belong at number 1, Chris. I know you played with this a couple weeks ago, but back in week 8, you had them 2. I always felt like they were the best team. A&M jumps up to 2 after the win versus LSU. Texas drops to 3 after a 3-point win over Vandy in Nashville. LSU, you've got them at 4. Again, they lost this game by double digits, so we'll touch on this in a second. Tennessee at 5. Ole Miss at 6 against Oklahoma. Oklahoma just didn't have enough offense in that game, it felt like. Alabama goose-egged Missouri. South Carolina at 8. I think they had a bye week, did they not?
They did.
Right. Arkansas, we talked about that game. Vanderbilt, Florida, Missouri laid a goose egg versus Alabama. Auburn gets their first SEC win against the team you put in last. And then Mississippi State and Oklahoma, who are struggling this season. Let's get into this conversation here. Chris.
Mike, can we take a moment? Congratulations to Auburn. Finally beat a Power 4 team. First SEC win. It only took till the end of October.
I hate saying
listen, and I don't even mean this sarcastically. Congratulations to everybody tuned in. The Auburn Tigers did what we thought they could do, Mike. I thought they could do it. I just needed to see it to believe it. Who knows? Who knew, Mike? When you just feed Jarquez Hunter, good things happen.
Yeah, it looks like they ditched a lot of that RPO stuff as well.
287 of them on the ground. How about it?
Yeah, he vaulted to number 1 in the rushing rankings there in the SEC with that performance. But
I was happy for you and all the Auburn folks. I really was, man. I was
happy for
I know
Hugh
this
Freeze.
Season was taking a beating on you, man. It's finally.
Yeah,
you got something fun to talk about this week. Why not? Yeah,
talking about wins is a lot more fun. Hugh Freeze, I mean, he looked relieved, man. Last week in the press conference, it was the first time I've actually seen him look really defeated this season. They needed this win in a lot of ways. I saw a video of them celebrating in the locker room. Jumping back here to the rankings, though, before we get into Auburn, can we talk about Missouri not being able to score a single point versus Alabama. What the hell, man? I'm so pissed. Brady Cook comes back from the literal morgue last week to beat Auburn, and he couldn't make it a whole half in this game. What did they did? They didn't give him his opioid cocktail this time, or like what happened? To explain that game to me, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this. I'll explain it to you this way, because I thought early on Missouri's defense was hanging in there as much as they could. Missouri without Brady Cook might be the worst team in the league. They are without Brady Cook.
Whoa, what?
Maybe that's an over-exaggeration, but
okay.
They are bad with Drew Pine. That offensive line is not very good. I did think Alabama got back to just physicality, punching somebody in the mouth repeatedly until they finally caved into submission. Justice Haynes, Jan Miller, a couple of really physical runs. Thought Jalen Milroe obviously was solid, but yeah, man. I mean, Missouri is just I thought they'd take a step back this year, Mike. I am surprised how much of a step back, and it's weird because you look at this team, you're like, they're still 6-2, but
yeah,
they feel like they're 4-4. Just like the vibe of the season. Had that overtime win against Vandy. Had the Auburn game, obviously, where you mentioned Brady Cook's heroics. So, yeah, I mean, it's probably, I don't know. I hate to use like this hyperbole, but probably the worst 6-2 team in the country.
Yeah,
I don't know how they're still in the top 25.
Yeah, they kept them ranked. The cowards in the AP dropped Vandy from the rankings.
Cowards.
They kept Missouri.
Cowardly behavior.
Thought Vandy deserved to stay ranked, Chris. Going back here, Ole Miss took care of business in their matchup versus Oklahoma. Not surprising. Oklahoma, no offense. I mean, their offense, when I saw their offense versus Ole Miss, I thought to myself, how did Auburn lose to this team? This doesn't make sense.
Well, first half, they actually had some life. The first half, my thought was they should have fired Seth Luttrell weeks ago.
They went back to Jackson Arnold.
I think that was the right move. I think they gave up on Jackson Arnold too quickly this season, to be honest with you. I thought they panicked on Jackson Arnold, taking him out against Tennessee. Like, the Tennessee game, he's turning the football over, but like just completely ditching the kid after that game. I thought they pulled the trigger too quick on that. So,
LSU, it was disheartening to see LSU fans turn on Nussmeier the way they did on Twitter yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this today or here on Monday, Mike, is the time we're talking. I said Garrett Nussmeier is the pitcher that throws 100 miles an hour, but he has no clue where it's going.
Yeah.
And I don't like here's what I mean by that. Like, he's just a roller coaster, man. Like, at his best, in the first half of that game, LSU A&M, if you'd have asked me who the best quarterback in the conference is this year, I'd have said Garrett Nussmeier. And then the second half happens, and you're like, but this is what he's unfortunately. He's a guy whose ceiling and floor is so far apart. It's so far apart, right? So when he's at his best, he's one of the best in the conference, if not the country. But he has that, we knew, what do they call him? The Cajun Brett Favre, I think is what they call him. He's the Cajun Brett Favre.
Oh, my goodness.
He's the Bayou Brett Favre. I mean, that's what he is.
Well,
and then the guy just, he turns the football over so much, and you could other things happened. A&M physically imposed their will in the second half. They did. Marcel Reed is a dog, by the way, is a dog. But Garrett Nussmeier threw them out of that game.
He did.
With a couple. I mean, the pick, Mike, he's rolling left and goes back across the field. You're taught since Pop Warner not to do that. Yeah. And he just does it anyways. Like some of these throws he makes, man. To your point, the reason I've got LSU at 4, because I know you and I talked off here, you're like, hey, LSU at 4. I'm not selling all my stock on LSU. I think LSU's still a good football team. I really do. It's just they're a really good football team with a quarterback that at times, like LSU, his inconsistency isn't going to take LSU from a double-digit win team to a 6-win team. But his inconsistency might hold them back from making the college football playoff or making an SEC title or winning a national title. You know what I mean? So
that's wide open right now in the SEC. I mean, honestly, Georgia is still the class of the SEC. It's them and everybody else until somebody other than Bama beats them in the regular season. And you're looking maybe time to give Texas A&M a little credit.
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, Mike.
Yeah, it's time to give them credit.
Listen, I mean, if I'd have told you, Mike, that Texas A&M in year one of Mike Elko going into the month of November would control their destiny to get to Atlanta.
Yeah.
You just said I was probably crazy, but that's exactly where we are. The real test, if A&M has changed, is this weekend when they play South Carolina and Columbia. That to me, that's the game. That type of game is the one I think in years past they would typically lose.
Yeah.
Against what they probably see as an inferior opponent, even though the spread is 3 points right now, but it's a night game at South Carolina. This game's been labeled, Mike, all since the summer. Like, that's the trap game. That's the game A&M's going to lose. I'm really curious about this one. Big game for both sides, but it's huge for A&M, man. I think just, if you're an A&M fan, again, this is the one to me that tells me, okay, they've never had a problem winning the big game. They've had a problem following it up and, building on it. So we'll see.
Well, those games are great, but I want to talk about the game of the weekend, and that was Auburn versus Kentucky, baby. Let's go.
The degenerate game of the weekend for sure.
Both teams are now 3-5. Auburn earns their first SEC win. They go into Lexington, where, quite honestly, they've had a lot of success over the years. They noted that at the top of the broadcast. Look, this was the one Hugh Freeze needed right now, and I've asked the question, what's left to play for this season? It feels like bowl game is it. You don't get that bowl game. You don't get the extra practices. And it means that you probably finished your season on a losing streak. So Auburn has Vanderbilt. Let me jump back to the rankings here one more time. You've got Vanderbilt, who you have at number 10, ULM in the non-conference. And then you've got the number 2 team in Texas A&M. And you have Alabama, of course, to end the season. Chris, look, if Auburn's going to get to a bowl game, they're going to have to pull a couple of upsets. Right now, I think they're a 6.5-point favorite versus Vandy.
Yep.
Auburn is at home. And I really thought they would be an underdog coming in this one, the way they were playing. But if Jarquez Hunter is going to run for 250, which I'm not sure Vandy's going to let him do that, then I like Auburn's chances. To get ULM, that maybe gets you to 5 wins. And then to get to a bowl game, you're going to have to pull an upset versus Texas A&M and Alabama. This season in the SEC is going to come down to a fantastic finish because it's no longer just, okay, we're going to watch Georgia and Alabama duke it out, right? Like, Georgia's going to the SEC championship game, I think. I can't wait to watch them beat the absolute shit out of Ole Miss here. I think on November 9th is that game. But it's wide open after that. I mean, you've got Texas A&M that could fill in that slot. Texas could fill in that slot. Does Tennessee pull something off here? And Auburn has a chance to play spoiler and absolutely make sure that Alabama doesn't reach the this would be an absolute failure for Kalen DeBoer with the roster he inherited. Right? If you don't make the playoff, a 12-team playoff, by the way, in your first year with the most talented roster any coach has ever inherited, and it was because you lost the Iron Bowl to Auburn, that's a special kind of poetic justice.
Yeah, it's definitely a way, Mike, to make a bitter season just a little bit sweeter or a lot sweeter, really, truly. Sure. I mean, to your point, you mentioned what's Auburn playing for. It's absolutely a bowl game. I mean, listen, that may not sound like a lot. That wasn't the goal in year 2 of Hugh Freeze, but that's a whole heck of a lot better than not going to a bowl game. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. Bowl games don't matter. You'd rather go to one than not go to one. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, if Auburn is able to knock out Bama in the final game, I mean, again, there'd be just no better way to cap off what's been otherwise a frustrating season. You know what else is crazy, Mike, that what Auburn can accomplish? Auburn can win back-to-back games for the first time this season if they beat Vanderbilt. That might be something small, but they haven't done it otherwise.
Chris,
to your point, how
prior to yesterday, they had not won an SEC game since like last year versus Mississippi State. I think it was like last October or something was the last SEC game they won.
Yeah. Again, Mike, you see why I was happy for you in the audience.
Yeah.
To tell you just how wide open it is, too, Mike, I saw something on social media. There is a path to Georgia missing the SEC championship if A&M and LSU both win out. Georgia would be the odd man out in that situation because of the game, because LSU would have a win over Alabama and Georgia would have lost to Bama. I think LSU would get in over Georgia. And A&M would obviously be undefeated in conference.
Yeah, that's a disaster. I mean, I think Georgia still makes the playoff in that.
So there would be a rematch of A&M LSU in Atlanta.
Oh,
which I'll tell you this, those
yeah.
two fan bases, as toxic as they are, my gosh, Atlanta might burn to the ground.
There's something poetic about A&M possibly making the SEC championship
in
game
year one of Texas.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, I love.
Well, I mean,
that.
think about you mentioned how wide open it is. The likelihood that the Lone Star Showdown has SEC title and or college football playoff implications to it. It grows by the week. I mean, so that game was already going to be nutty.
Yeah.
And then you factor that in.
It's going to be crazy. Going to be crazy. Chris, look, man, obviously this was a big win for Auburn. And like you said, they can win back-to-back games for the first time this season. It's going to be big for Hugh Freeze, I think, in re-recruiting his roster.
Hugh Freeze can beat Diego Pavia, man. Good God.
Finally. Like, people are like, are you worried about Vanderbilt? I'm like, no, I'm worried about Pavia. Like, that's what I'm worried about.
And I'll tell you this. You should be, because that kid's a ball player, man. Getting to see him in person. And by the way, side note, this means nothing for the X's and O's on the field, but I went to the Pavia family tailgate on Saturday, Mike. The Pavias party.
The party Pavias. Okay.
They party, Mike.
Okay.
They're like the modern day Gronks. They party. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
you might see him in Auburn this weekend. I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Auburn comes home, Chris, after a long road stretch. They did not play a home game in the month of October. But look, we're here at home every Monday, talking to you guys about the SEC Unfiltered rankings. Chris, I want to thank you for joining me. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, Mike, it's always a pleasure, man. I'm grateful for you and the relationship we've been able to build over these last few months, man, and excited to see where everything goes. But we're at SEC Unfiltered, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your content, YouTube, podcast, and our website, SECUnfiltered.com. And the SEC Unfiltered Tour rolls on as well. We're in Jacksonville this weekend for the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, and I'd be coming to your city next. You never know, so stay tuned.
Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express podcast powered by the War Report. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report, every social media platform, TW Report on TikTok. Signing off, and as always, War Eagle.